Hello and welcome to You Wellbeing. I'm Ashley Mayer and I'm here today with our Associate Nutrition Practitioner, Carolyn Lee.
Hi Ashley.
Carolyn, hi. Today what we wanted to do is we wanted to just give some basic suggestions how to, if you like, kickstart your recovery, or some basic suggestions on what you can do in the interim just to give yourself the correct support. Now, Carolyn works very much on the physiological, nutritional side of things. I work more on the psychological side of the condition. And what we're really doing when we're working with people to guide them on their recovery journey is to help them to put the complex puzzle of the different components together. Now, some of those factors are going to be psychological, some of them are going to be physiological. And without working with the practitioner and getting the correct guidance to help you put those pieces together in the correct order, it really becomes a situation of hit and miss. So we like to just give you a few basic suggestions of things that might be helpful for you in the beginning stages, bearing in mind that when we first started working in this field, there were very few answers out there, and very often people used to spend, if you like, I know for you it was almost a decade of really looking for sort of things that might be able to help. So Carolyn, when we think about the physiological factors that are going on, and I know that no case is the same, so everyone's sort of a different set of factors. It's essential that people actually get to a qualified practitioner to really understand what's going on and what needs to be addressed.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I know that you're a little bit hesitant about giving advice to people and sort of saying, this is what you should do, bearing in mind that everyone's going to be slightly different. What suggestions, what very basic suggestions would you give to people if they can't get to a practitioner now for whatever reason?
Right.
What's important?
Well, they need to perhaps look at what their symptoms are. I think that's important. And maybe recognise whether they think it's a physical or a mental, but they might not be able to do that. So maybe taking some sort of yoga or meditation would be a good way to start anyway, because it will calm them down, calm their mind down. Okay,
so what we're saying is that, and I know we've discussed this a lot, is that in this condition is very much the maladaptive stress response that is present, which may be sort of something that you, in your own journey, weren't that aware of at the time, but now it's very clear.
Yes.
So doing sort of something of that nature is going to just sort of calm the system down.
It can be very, very beneficial for a great amount of people. There are some people who are going to be out there saying, I don't need that, I'm not going to do that, that's fine.
Yeah.
But for those who actually recognise perhaps that they do, then that's a way of starting the process.
Okay. What else would you sort of say from a nutritional perspective might be just a helpful way of starting so you can't get to you immediately?
Okay.
What would you suggest?
It's difficult because I always treat the individual as an individual, and because I look for the root cause, it's always difficult to just give blanche advice to everybody. But I suppose the basic rules are obviously to try and cut out the junk food, which is not going to do anybody any good anyway. To eat what's called the complex carbohydrates, that is the brown stuff. Now, a lot of you out there will think, oh, don't want to eat that. But when you think about white potatoes, white flour, white bread, cakes, biscuits, all the stuff that you love, it's not actually doing you any good if you're actually chronically ill. The reason being for this is that many of you who are perhaps thinking you've got ME, you might have some bacterial infection, you might have a viral infection. Unfortunately, a lot of these things feed on sugar and starch, so you're doing yourself a favour just by reducing that.
So you're sort of out with the starch, out with all the sort of these...
And try to replace it with some really healthy, good, complex stuff like brown rice, brown pasta, lots of things, nice things like butternut squash and sweet potatoes, which are some of the superfoods that I like to talk about. Healthy fruits, lots of green vegetables, lots of water.
And in terms, is it important that people get sufficient protein intake as well?
They should. I mean, this is a mistake that many people make, particularly vegetarians and vegans. You have to have proteins. Proteins are the building blocks of life. And if you don't have proteins, you cannot have what's called cellular renewal. So your whole body will not be able to renew itself, which it doesn't. It repairs and renews itself on a regular basis. So plenty of protein, but vegetable protein particularly is more essential than just meat and fish. So nuts and seeds, pulses, beans, those are, again, healthy essentials that I would put on the list. Foods to help your liver detox, beetroot, fantastic food for helping your liver to help remove toxins. Onions,
so just by taking
foods like that.
So just by putting in sort of some of these food items and taking out sort of some of the former, or the starchy, sugary items,
giving yourself a better chance. You're not actually going to get better.
No.
And I have to state this right now. It doesn't matter what diet you go on at the beginning, it's more than diet, and it's usually so complex, as you know, that diet alone often just isn't the answer, particularly with chronic fatigue syndrome, because it's so complex. So just take that into account.
And removing sort of as much sugar from the diet as possible.
Absolutely. And when we talk about sugar, we're talking about added sugar. We're not talking about natural sugars that fruit produces. That's actually good for you. We're talking about white granulated added sugar, which is in everything these days.
Now, why is it important to eliminate sugar from your diet?
Sugar drains the body, number one. It drains what's called the adrenal glands. Now, you've all heard of adrenaline, and that's our stress hormone. The adrenals are also responsible for energy, and sugar will drain that. It will also feed any bacteria or virus that you may have. And many of you with chronic fatigue may actually have that, but you don't realise it at the time.
So there's a lot of stress on the adrenal glands.
Huge amount of stress mentally and physically.
All right. Now, I know that you mentioned also before you were talking about sort of how caffeine can sort of have a negative impact as well.
Again, too much caffeine. I mean, you know what it's like if you have too much coffee. You're like, you're totally like that. You're wired up to the... If you think about your energy levels, what caffeine does is it actually drains your energy. You think it's giving you a huge boost. This is what happens with added white sugar. You get this huge boost, so your blood sugar will just go up like that very, very quickly. And that's what happens with caffeine. Your energy will go up very quickly, but it will come down also very, very quickly. So again, try to reduce the caffeine as much as the sugar, because you need to keep both your blood sugar and your adrenals on an even keel.
And I guess that if we're talking about sugar, we're also talking about alcohol in this case.
Alcohol, unfortunately, is a big no-no for most people, and a lot of people who become ill often become intolerant to alcohol anyway, and find that they actually can't tolerate it, but don't realise it.
So what you're saying is that until people can actually sort of get to a professional to really address the factors going on, if they start to eliminate alcohol, as much sugar out of the diet as possible.
And smoking. Try to address the whole lifestyle. They need to step back. And they need to look at the way they are actually behaving.
And then looking at sort of basic diet in terms of sort of getting rid of the sugar, getting rid of all the starchy white stuff, and sort of replacing it with more sort of wholesome brown foods.
I mean, only recently, as you know, it's been on the news. They're linking chronic disease to nutrition. So if your diet is really very poor and you're living on junk food, you do need to look at that.
So put the basics in place.
And
then as quickly as possible get to see a professional nutritionist.
As quickly as possible, because it's very hard to do it on your own. And people who do try to do it on their own, actually, who think they're doing fine, are probably not doing as well as they think they're doing. So it's often not balanced, it's often deficient in nutrients, and they're not actually doing themselves a favour by trying to do it on their own.
Carolyn, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And if you'd like some more information, please refer to our website, www.uwellbeing.com. There's a section there where Carolyn features. Thank you very much, Carolyn.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and goodbye.